Welcome into Studio 73, everybody, and welcome to Outside the Huddle, talking a little Week 7 NFL. I'm Laney Johnson.
And I'm Tobey. Let's start talking Patriots. Obviously, they come off the win versus the Bengals. Bengals looked terrible in the second half, obviously. Maybe the first half was a little scary, but Patriots had a pretty good win over the weekend.
Yeah, they did have a great win. They didn't look great in the first half because of the offensive line. Everyone knows the only way to get to Brady is put pressure on him. That stops the pass, it stops the rush. And they had 3 sacks against the Patriots. But the Patriots came out big in the second half, and they made up for it. Yeah,
Gronkowski, 162 yards and a touchdown. He looked good. Brady looking like he maybe could win MVP, even though he missed the first 4 games of the season. I've heard that around the league, that Brady still is the best quarterback. I mean, the quarterbacks around the league are decreasing. We've seen Aaron Rodgers decrease. We've seen a couple other guys decrease. So, I mean, Brady's still looking like the best quarterback in the league.
Exactly. And Martellus Bennett was quiet in this game, but the thing with the 2 tight end play, it's very important for the Patriots, because then if Bennett's quiet, we still had Gronk go off, right? He got his first Gronk spike of the season. The Gronk spike heard around the world.
Gotta love the Gronk spike. One thing that is concerning is Stephen Gostkowski. He's missed 3 field goals, 1 extra point, obviously, last game. It's just a bit weird to see him. He's struggled ever since the AFC Championship game last year against Denver.
It is disconcerting. He's a bit of a head case right now. I don't know what's going on, but I think he just needs to figure it out and needs to just kick a bunch of field goals in
Go out and practice. I mean, come on. Switching now to the Steelers, who they're going to play this week. No Ben Roethlisberger, which is the biggest story. He had surgery on a torn meniscus. He'll be out for now, they say 4 to 6 weeks perhaps. So what are you kind of looking for in that matchup?
Well, with Landry Jones in there, he does not have a touchdown in the NFL yet. He started 7 games last year for Roethlisberger, and so I think the running backs are going to be really important for them. They have Le'Veon Bell, they have D'Angelo Williams. They're very effective, but with all the offensive weapons they have, they're going to be the most important for them in this game.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell, obviously the best running back in the league. We talk about Antonio Brown being the best wide receiver in the league. So that's what a combination to have on the offensive side. But the Steelers have been inconsistent. Obviously, they lost to the Miami Dolphins. Yes, Ben Roethlisberger was hurt. A couple other factors worked in that one as well. But they have been a little inconsistent both on the offensive end and the defensive side. But for me, I'm going to go Patriots. I'm going to say 21-17. I think it's going to be a close one. Just because the Patriots are playing in Pittsburgh, they're not playing at Gillette Stadium, so I'll pick the Patriots.
I agree with you. I think even with all the offensive weapons, without Ben Roethlisberger, it's going to be hard for the Steelers to utilize them. I'm also going Patriots, but I think it's going to be a little higher scoring, 31-21.
Ooh, a little shootout, Maybe we see Mike Vick. I don't know. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Moving on to the Bills and the Dolphins. Obviously, we just talked about the Dolphins, but the Bills coming off that 45-16 win versus San Francisco. San Francisco legit stinks.
Yeah, San Francisco looked very bad last week, even with Colin Kaepernick starting over Blaine Gabbert. Just did not look good. Bills looked awesome, right? So they have LaShawn McCoy.
Shady McCoy.
Right, and he's a superstar. He's the 2nd leading rusher in the league, right behind Ezekiel Elliott. He had 587 yards and 6 touchdowns this season so far, so I think he's going to be a huge factor in this game.
He had 34 fantasy points last week, which is great if you have him on fantasy. I don't. We'll talk about my fantasy team in a little bit. Zach Brown, 67 tackles, which is 2nd in the league. Lorenzo Alexander, 8 sacks, which is 1st. So their defense actually pretty good.
Yeah, the Rex Ryan defense always it's a really strong point of every one of his teams, and with Rob Ryan as a defensive coordinator, just really strong defense from the Bills. And then the Dolphins, they've not been great this season. They've only won against Cleveland and last week against the Steelers, which obviously a broken team without Ben Roethlisberger. And Ryan Tannehill has thrown 6 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So just not a great year.
You see his QBR 43.1 or whatever it was. Obviously, Jay Ajayi had 204 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, but you're not going to see that a lot out of him. I mean, he is a second-year guy, I believe, or a rookie rather, but he's not that great of a running back. He just kind of had a good week against an okay defense. The Dolphins, like you said, they're not great at all. The defense lets up the second most rushing yards in the league, which bodes well for LaShawn McCoy. Shady McCoy out there, my boy. Hopefully he can get going there. So I'm going to pick the Bills 35-14.
I also have the Bills, especially because Arian Foster's still out, so that running is not going to be great from the Dolphins. So I have the Bills 24-17.
Nice.
So moving on to the Seahawks and the Cardinals. What do you think about this game in Arizona?
Both defenses actually pretty good. You could either say that the Cardinals or the Seahawks defense have maybe the best in the league. San Francisco, or rather Seattle, coming off the 26-24 win versus the Falcons. Did you see the Richard Sherman
pass interference?
Pass interference, was it? It was, obviously. It wasn't called. Horrible reffing in the NFL. We'll talk about that at another date. So that wasn't called. He was, obviously, Bruce Arians was upset. Or not Bruce Arians. who they played last week, was upset.
Yep.
Seattle, they've turned into the best defense in the league. They let up the least yards per game overall, so that doesn't bode well for the Arizona offense.
Exactly, but Arizona has really figured it out. They struggled for the first few weeks. They're a 3-3 team, but I think they're a much better team than what their record shows, right? So they have David Johnson, who has been great for Arizona, and then they have Larry Fitzgerald, who's also been great. Together, they combined for 13 out of their 18 touchdowns for the team, so I think it's going to be a real battle between these two teams. I really like this matchup.
And you mentioned David Johnson. I traded him away in fantasy. I cannot believe I did so. I traded away him and Ezekiel Elliott, and I just look like an absolute fool. I'm now 0-6 on the season, and I just hang my head every time I play fantasy because that's not my thing.
I'm actually kind of killing it in fantasy this year.
Well, you have David Johnson.
I do have David Johnson.
So that works out. The Cardinals, yeah, we talked about their defense. Sixth most points per game on the opposing side they let up. So their defense has been pretty good. I'm going to pick the Seahawks, though, 27-24, just by a field goal. I believe in the Seahawks. They were actually my preseason pick to go to the Super Bowl versus the Patriots.
Yeah, they were my preseason pick as well, but I think if this game was in Seattle, it would be a different story in that atmosphere. Exactly. So loud, so hard to get through. But I think since it's in Arizona, I'm going to give the Cardinals the edge and say they take it 17-14.
All right, let's talk about the undefeated Minnesota Vikings.
They are so impressive.
They're going up against the Eagles, who are 3-2 in the NFC East.
Right. They've dropped their last 2 games after starting 3-0 with Carson Wentz. I think they're just coming off of the.
Who's on my fantasy team? Carson Wentz got me 7 points this week. Not impressive at all.
They're coming off the Wentz mania high, and they're just kind of coming back to earth off of what they thought was going to be great. And Carson Wentz has not looked bad in the games that he's played. Even when they're losing, he's looked really good, especially for a rookie. And so I think he's going to have another good game, but against the Vikings defense is going to
Vikings defense is obviously, people say it's the best defense in the league too. So I mean, Seattle, Vikings defense, Cardinals defense, they're all pretty good, top 3 defenses in the league. Sam Bradford has a 109.8 QBR rating,
right.
So he's been pretty good since coming over from Philadelphia.
Exactly. He's been very accurate. He's completing 88% of his passes. He has not thrown an interception yet, even though the Vikings aren't putting up a ton of offensive.
No, Stephon Diggs only has 1 touchdown.
Exactly. And altogether, they're averaging 232 passing yards a game, 70 rushing. So they're not putting up a ton of numbers, right? But they're just being so effective on defense that they're stopping other teams from doing the same.
Yeah, exactly. And they're obviously undefeated, so they kind of have that feel around the league that, oh, maybe they can get to maybe the NFC Championship or even the Super Bowl. So we'll see about that. I'm going to pick the Vikings by, again, a field goal, 17-14. It'll be a low-scoring game. The offenses aren't that great, like we said.
Right, I agree with you. I'm giving the Vikings the edge, and I think it's going to be low-scoring, so I said 17-10.
All right, that'll wrap up Outside the Huddle. I'm Jacob Tobey.
And I'm Laney Johnson. We'll see you next time.